We're going to be taking you down to Orlando, where the coaches are all talking. Yesterday, the AFC coaches. Today, the NFC coaches. We know about this offseason in Dallas. The contract extension for Dak Prescott sort of looming over what has been a very quiet offseason for the Cowboys so far. He is taking up, Dak is, as we speak, more than 20% of the team's salary cap. Maybe that's the reason the team hasn't done practically anything. Just moments ago, their coach, Mike McCarthy, had this to say.
To draft and develop, and if you look at my history as a head coach, is something I'm very comfortable and have a lot of experience in. The biggest impact of our football team will come from the players that are currently on the roster. We've got a draft class coming in. We'll continue to be involved in the free agency, but the reality of our business is the economics. I mean, the economics as your players grow and as their value grows, how you keep them all together is that's a whole another competition that goes on year to year. So if you're progressing and the value of your players is increasing, the economics of your football teams is never going to be the same year to year. So I get what the numbers say, but the reality of it is, from my experiences, you got to really develop from within.
All right, listen, I mean, I'll give him credit, as Mike T and Tim Hasselbeck and Bartholomew here with me this morning. And again, we're going to hear from all the NFC coaches at one time or another this morning. He's being pretty honest there, right, Mike T? He's basically saying we can't afford to do anything because we got Dak and we got C.D. Lamb and we got Micah Parsons. Don't expect us to get better.
Yeah, I agree. Those are high-class problems to have. Anybody in the NFL would like to have those three players, so more of the money is going to less of the players. So how do we solve the problem? Look, I was a little surprised, don't get Derrick Henry. Maybe go after someone like A.J. Dillon. They didn't. But, Greeny, as you know, there's running backs in this draft, be it Blake Corum, Jonathan Brooks from Texas. They'll find a running back. Most notably at left tackle, they lose Tyron Smith. They get a guy like Tyler Smith 2 years ago. They could slide him out. So that's been their track record, is draft and develop. I know it's not sexy this time of year, but they got to pay those players, and that's job number one. You can't let Parsons or certainly C.D. Lamb leave the Dallas Cowboys. So I understand their plan.
I understand that. And no one is arguing that you would want those guys to go. What I'm saying is there's no real reason to think that if you keep the same players and just pay them more, that you're going to start getting better. And a lot of this, Tim Hasselbeck, and you and I were talking about this morning, stems back to the fact that they've allowed themselves to get sort of over a barrel with this Dak thing, and they've never really gotten out from under that. Yeah.
No, look, their hesitancy to sign Dak to a deal that, quite honestly, he deserved ended up being that, turning out where they end up paying Dak Prescott so much more money. When we have the graphic up there, over $55 million against the salary cap this season. And so it's basically, up to Dak to rework a deal, which means they've got to extend him. They haven't done that yet. And because of that, it is preventing them from being more active in free agency, whether it was Derrick Henry or A.J. Dillon. Look, they need a bigger back. That's the fact that they need a bigger running back. They don't have one, and they haven't done anything about it. And while they can do something about it in the draft, that's not the only need that they have. And so I think as they get older on the offensive line, I think as they, kind of are dealing with the change at running back, there are things that they probably should be involved in free agency that they haven't been, and a lot of it stems back to the fact that, the game of chicken between Dak Prescott and Jerry Jones, Dak won that, but now I think it's costing their football team.
Yeah, and they played it once, and Dak won it, and now they seem to be playing it again, and Dak is going to win. It's just a question of how much he runs up the score. So where does this leave the Dallas Cowboys?
I have mixed reviews. When you think about Dak Prescott, his contract, and you have to ask yourself, what have we really won by paying Dak Prescott this money? And I know you can do a lot worse than Dak Prescott, but Dak Prescott is falling short every time he was asked to carry a football team. When you look at what happened in Kansas City and, what Patrick Mahomes proved by taking the money, and you're going to have to say goodbye to some people. But he's continued to win Super Bowls, so that, to quote Mike Tannenbaum, he's a force multiplier. We don't know about Dak. I wonder if this building is split, saying, hey, is this the best our team could be? Because you can't hit in the draft like you hit with a guy that's a generational talent like Michael Parsons. You can't find a guy that's a generational talent like C.D. Lamb. They hit in the draft, when you talk about Tyler Smith. And now if you pay Dak again, you're going to have to start saying goodbye to some of that talent. So if you're not going to be the most talented football team, then Dak is going to have to do more. And it is about developing your players and players taking the next step. We saw last year with Bland, right? Like, Dallas has the best of everything. They have two of the best corners in the game. They have two great receivers. They have a solid offensive line. They have two bookend defensive ends. You can't have the best of everything.
Right.
But the problem is when you draft well, like they did, then the credit card bill is due. And now the credit card bill is due, and you're looking at Dak saying, okay, Dak, we can pay you. You can be the highest paid quarterback, but that's not going to be, conducive to us winning football games or trying to win a championship. So I think it's some people in there that say, hey, Trey Lance is on the roster. Maybe we develop him. We decide to go the San Francisco 49ers route where we have a great team with a lot of talent and a quarterback that may not be the best, but we get more from everybody else because Dallas was San Francisco first. They found the third round or fourth round quarterback in Dak Prescott, and they were able to spend money on luxury goods outside of him, and it still has yielded mixed results.
Right, and the 49ers have taken it a lot farther in the playoffs, even if they haven't wound up winning it all. So, Mike T, quickly, have they fallen behind? That the Eagles made a lot of big splashy moves. Has Dallas fallen behind in their own division?
Absolutely. I think Saquon Barkley makes Jalen Hurts healthier this year. And what we saw last year with Lamar Jackson coming down the stretch, he was healthy and Baltimore had a great year. I think Jalen Hurts wasn't himself a year ago. I think Saquon Barkley is a difference maker. And right now, as you said, Greeny, Dallas held serve. Philly got better. It was close. I give Philly the decided edge for the NFC East.
All morning long, we're taking you to Orlando, where the NFC coaches are speaking over breakfast this morning at the owners' meetings. Among them, the Bears coach, Matt Eberflus, talking about his takeaways from Caleb Williams' pro day. The expectation is the Bears will draft Williams #1 in the draft. Here's Chicago's coach just moments ago.
The biggest takeaway is that you can see the arm talent on the film, and you can see it there in person. And that was the biggest takeaway. What I loved to see was that the interaction with the other players. You can see that, and we talked to every person that was on that team. At the Senior Bowl, we interviewed them. We interviewed them at the pro day. We talked to those guys at the dinner, and you can certainly see that those players love him and respect him and what he's brought to that program.
Okay, so those are just a lot of words, but at the end of the day, Robert Griffin was on here yesterday with us, and he said something I've been saying for a long time, and it's louder when he says it than when I say it. But the reality is, my biggest concern if I'm Caleb Williams or anyone the Bears are going to draft is that they seem to be in this cycle where they are just not matched up. If there were three most important people, Mike Tannenbaum, and I'm including you and your brethren in this, if there were three people who really matter in a football organization, a general manager, a coach, and a quarterback, it would be nice if you had them all on one cycle. But the Bears never do that. It absolutely impacted Mitchell Trubisky. It absolutely impacted Justin Fields. And here you are with Matt Eberflus sitting there talking about how much everybody enjoyed Caleb Williams at his pro day. But if they're 5-12 next year, he's probably getting fired and a whole other coaching staff comes in and they're right back on that hamster wheel. What I'd like to hear him say is, you know what? I just had a great conversation with our management, and I've just signed a new extension, and I'm going to be the coach of the Bears for the foreseeable future, no matter what we do next year, so we can develop a quarterback and not just be desperate to win games. How does that sound, Tannenbaum?
Pretty good. Make sure you extend the general manager as well, because he's actually more important. But I actually agree with you, Greedy, from this standpoint. In the city of Chicago, the expectations are going to be sky high that he needs to be Patrick Mahomes by the end of the preseason. And as Coach Parcells would say, let's not put him in Canton quite yet. What I'm fascinated by is what's going to happen when there's a 3-game losing streak, because there will be bumps in the road. He has incredible talent. I would take him #1 in a heartbeat, but Greeny has been sacked over 80 times, 32 fumbles. There will be bumps in the road. So I agree with you. If I was management, I'd say Ryan Poles, Matt Eberflus, Caleb Williams, you guys are tied together for the next 5 years. Don't worry about the bumps in the road this year. Let's make sure we have the right foundation. You can run the ball. You don't have to throw for 4,000 yards. And let him walk before he runs, and that will give this organization the best chance for long-term success.
Tim.
Listen, I don't know why we're stopping there. Let's get the GM lakefront property, a penthouse on Michigan Avenue. Like, what else do we need to do for the general manager to make his life easier, less stressful, all of that stuff? Guys, this is crazy to me. When you get drafted #1 overall, you're supposed to be a guy that fixes things. You're supposed to make things better. You're picking #1 because things have not gone well. It's not been perfect. They are drafting you at that spot, basically saying you are better than everybody else that is leaving college football this year. In fact, you are so good, you are going to change the trajectory of our organization. Like, that's why you go #1 overall, not because you've orchestrated everything to be perfectly lined up for that player's success, the general manager's success, the head coach's success. Like that's how it's supposed to work. Look at Carolina. That was supposed to be scripted for success with all these guys that were going to be tied at the hip forever. They didn't even make it through year 1. You're going to go to a situation that isn't perfect. Go fix it. That's why you're getting drafted #1 overall.
Bart, who's right?
I think it's pretty close to damn good, right? When you look at it, this isn't that one of those typical situations, right? Because this isn't him going to a team that had the worst record,
right? Because
they have somebody else's pick,
right?
He's not going to Carolina. He's going to a team that finished 7-10, and this team is a lot closer than being 10-7 than they are 7-10. This is a great situation. He has 2,000-yard receivers. He has an improved offensive line. Defensive stars on the other side of the ball where he doesn't have to put everything on his shoulders. He has a 1,000-yard rusher. This is arguably one of the best situations a young quarterback can ever ask to go in because he's not going to be asked to do a lot. He should be asked to develop and during the end of the season be able to make 20 throws a game. They still have $23 million to improve this team after the draft that they can go out after that June 1st, which Tannenbaum understands. It's going to be a lot of good players that's going to get cut. That's going to be there on one-year deals. This is a perfect situation. You look at teams in the top 10, I can't find a better situation for a young quarterback than the one that he's going to find himself in. It's no pressure on him. Throw a spot pass to Keenan Allen or DJ Moore and let him run down the damn football field.
I actually agree with what you're saying there.